I want you to know what a doula really is. Everybody has their own idea of what it is. There's a whole new generation of people doing this from when I started. I've been practicing since 2005, and we're a small family business. I've been operating for 20 years. I started doing this. It was an idea I had, and people around the world were thinking of it too. You know what I mean? Just slowly percolating, populating. There was all kinds of movements going on, which led to the development of where we are today. I'm going to go a little bit through the history. There's might be one person that's responsible for like the word end of life doula, like in palliative care in hospice, they call Dame Cicely Saunders the founder of hospice or the originator of hospice. She's a physician in UK back in the 60s. Then the father of palliative care, they give it that title to Dr. Balfour Mount in Canada. He's like the palliative care. End of life doula has that, and I'll show you where that is. My name is Deanna Cochran, and I'm founder of CareDoula Education. And like I said, I've been doing palliative care education for the most part. That's what brought me out in 2005, as I was already a hospice nurse for years. And I saw the suffering and the dying that before they got to hospice. So end of life doula to me is something as a role that can help the dying in the best way is before they get to hospice. Once they get to hospice, they're fine, right? They have care, they have people with them. If it's a good hospice, they're going to be fine. But before they get to hospice is when most of the dying occurs. And that's where end of life doulas can really help. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on my presentation. I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit before I get started with the presentation. So let me get that going. So I'm going to be talking about the role. Go through the slides, and then I'm going to answer all your questions. I want you to know that I have an end-of-life doula certificate program. I started that in 2010. Everything was natural. I never really sought anything other than to educate the lay public how to reduce suffering during dying time when they're not on hospice, because that's where the suffering is, right? So that's been my mission all along. I've done all kinds of things. I've done corporate development programs nationwide for hospice organizations. I've done taught my program in master's level graduate chaplaincy program. That's never been done before. I've done a lot of things at request. People just ask me to help them, and of course I want to do that. The end of life doula role, if you have a desire to bring peace and possibilities at the end of life, then people will watch you and see your work, and they're going to want you to help them. What we're going to go over is the definition. I'm going to tell you about the Doula Alliance. This is our membership organization, a little bit about the history, the difference between hospice and doula, the volunteer and the fee-for-service doula. So I want to kind of get into all of it. The National End-of-Life Doula Alliance, pulling the definition from there. When we started the NEDA, we call it NEDA, National End-of-Life Doula Alliance, we started it in 2017. And I was the first vice president. Mary Lynn was the first president, and other doula trainers. And I won't go into the history of how that happened. You can read it in my book if you want to read it. It's a chapter in and of itself, how that came to be. But the purpose of it is we didn't want to bring a policing organization about it. Back then, end of life doula, even in 2017, I mean, I had been doing it since 2005, and nobody really, there was really no movement till probably around 2012 or 13 or 14. I mean, there's not much going on. So when people started coming, like I think now there's over 70 training programs. So that's really wonderful. There's all kinds of options for people, whatever your style is, there's going to be a training program to help you, and you'll resonate with that teacher. But at the time, we're banging our heads because, like me, even back in 2009, 7, 8, when people were calling me when they found out what I was doing, I never thought, how are we ever going to harness? It's like chasing cats. How are we ever going to harness a unified definition of doula when I saw firsthand all these years how everybody from a different background. They came from a different background. They had a different skill set. Some were medical, some were non-medical. Most people had seen someone die. There was a few that never even saw a dying body. How are we going to even do this? Well, we did. And you can see this, I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see this definition here. It's almost so broad, it's meaningless. But we did that on purpose because we had to incorporate the aspects of what would differentiate a person and then a role. We're calling this a person who accompanies the dying, end of life doula. How do we even attempt to provide some guidance to people who want to do this professionally? It was real important to me that we include what I'm calling grandma doulas, because grandma doulas never had a training, never had a certification. They just knew what to do. And I wanted to make sure that grandma doulas always had a place. They didn't have to make them train. So that's why the micro badge that you'll read about if you go there to that website, the micro badge doesn't say that you have to have training. You don't have to have certification. There's no law anywhere. We need doulas on every level. We need volunteers. We need paid for service. We need them in hospices, hospitals. We need volunteers in the street. We need people in hospice houses. We need people in social model hospice houses, nursing homes, grandma down the street. We need people who understand and know doula every level. There's no shame on however you want to do this, right? Some people want to do this professionally because your interest and your inspiration in wanting to do this is beyond the hospice volunteering of a certain number of hours per week, and you have to do it per the organization. So anybody volunteering within any organization, they have to go by the rules and the laws of, or the rules of the organization. I feel like doulas are like water. We move like water. We move through all the service. We're the ones that will help people when the system lets them down. As a hospice nurse, I can tell you for 15 years, when I would go to families, they're not always, but I would say maybe 75, 80% of the time, there's somebody around who just knows what to do. And we're always so grateful. It's like, oh gosh, thank God that family has somebody who just is that person. And those are the people coming into this. You probably are that person. You're not afraid of this. You might have a different way of looking at it. You're the one that everyone calls when something's going down. The National End of Life Doula Alliance has been up since 2017. They told us back then when we started, they said, the visionaries of a nonprofit almost always are not the ones to keep making it go forward. It's usually always that way. You need people who really know what they're doing to continue a nonprofit, you know? And I feel that's what happened is they have really good people that have been taken over since then and making good work. So know that we have a professional organization, nonprofit membership organization that is, because we're so new, they're taking opinions. You can join it. You can be part of it. They want to hear what you have to say. And the goal is a safe practice so that people who don't know anything about us can go to that website and go, oh, I got it. I get it. I understand what a doula is. Because otherwise, that was the problem. The hospice CEO at the time of the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, when we went to San Diego back in 2017 and working all this out, he goes, hospice has, y'all have the problem that hospice had. It's like it could be Tony's Pizza in hospice. It could be, ski slope. Nobody knows what it is. And doulas are worse because not all end-of-life doulas do the same thing at all. They have such a varied background. So how do you even talk about it, right? So that's why I feel so proud of NITA, because we came up with a system of micro badge, basic definition here. So pretty much anybody, what you're doing can fit in here. Non-medical, holistic, preparing for end of life, emotional, practical. It all fits. And then the micro badge, you can, I don't know if they sell the study guide or give it to you, I don't remember. All right, I want to tell you a little bit about the history of hospice so that you can get what where we came from. 67, that's her, Dame Cicely Saunders. Then in the 60s, the later 60s, Kubler-Ross, everybody knows her, she was doing her research. In the midst of all that, Dame Cicely Saunders said to Dr. Balfour Mount in Canada, come to me, leave your wife at home. He was going to do like a family vacay. Leave your wife at home, come to me, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing. So he did that. Then he started, they already had a word for, he couldn't use the hospice word because Canada already had this a French word for something else. So he chose palliative care. And palliative care then began in the hospitals over there, trying to bring comfort, and then came down to the United States. And palliative care actually is care. I'm just going to do a quick aside. Can begin the day of diagnosis. You don't have to be terminal. And this is a teaching that could go on. We could have a whole 2 weeks on this, but just know that it can begin from day one of someone being diagnosed, and they have it concurrently with a cure-directed treatment. Hospice uses palliative care as the sole method of treatment. Okay, so just know that. If you're lucky, if you get a strong diagnosis of serious illness, you'll have a treatment plan for cure. Most people want to go for cure, and you can have a treatment plan for comfort, because we know things are going to happen along the way, right? All right, just know that. Anyway, so then hospice, the first one was Connecticut, then NHPCO was created, and that is National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. They're the oldest and largest hospice trade organization in the US. And it's because of the NHPCO that we doulas have a stand that we have today. It's because of them. Very conservative organization, lobbyist for Medicare, on the Hill. They live, they're in Alexandria. It's because of them, very conservative they have vetted us. You can point, as a professional end-of-life doula, you can point your families or anybody, in the healthcare that says, who are you and you're not any good or whatever, you can point them to the NHPCO website where we have an end-of-life doula advisory council. We are legit. First hospice in Africa, 82, that's when the Medicare benefit happened. It was created in the United States. And so you have, we get paid, it's an entitlement now. People get it paid for. Bill Moyers made a big deal about dying in 2000. So everybody started learning about it there, and then Turkey. And so anyway, now at this day and time, around 50% of people will die within hospice, Medicare deaths. This is the doula history, just a little bit. And this matters to me that you know this history, because we didn't just come out of thin air. So here's Saunders in 69. Now this woman right here, Phyllis Farley, she was a birth philanthropist in the New York City area. She went to the Shirabuske Center because they were having an end-of-life conference. She went there and she heard them talking about whatever they were talking about, and said, y'all, you're doing what birth doulas do. You all are treating your people in the congregation the way we do birthing. So that's where end-of-life doula came from, was her and them. Then they worked it out. And in 2001, Doulas to Accompany and Support is 2001. It's still there, still going strong. And I mean, I know I've talked to her, so I can't think of her name at the second, but she's still the executive director. So you're talking what? 20 something years. That's important. This is you never hear about this. You never hear about the doula to accompany and support. All you hear about are people like me and other people that people write about. You know what I'm saying? There's always these personalities that are in the news and everything. Y'all, that's all you hear about. You don't hear about this. And this is where it started. Then Henry Fursko Weiss, he heard about birth doulas, and then this hospice here, he was working there then, and he was like their director, social work director, and he said, hey, I'm hearing about birth doulas. let's do something. So they created the first doula program in a hospice. And I think we would have exploded a lot sooner, but that hospice went bankrupt and they went out of business. So they were only up about a year. So that's why I think it didn't take off more in New York, you know? And then that was 2003. And then I came in 2005. And so this is how it began. And I was clueless. I didn't come to start anything. But just like I said, people are percolating here and there. You have Hermione in UK, you have Cassandra Yonder in Canada, you've got lot Australia, you've got people all over the place. You have other people in the States. The movements that were happening that we stand on their shoulders is the National Home Funeral Alliance, the Green Movement, Green Burial Movement. You know, we stand on the talk about death, the death cafes. There's a lot of different movements, if you will, that we stand on the shoulders of. We just didn't just decide and then it just took off out of nothing. There's power behind the role that we have here. I did have the first certificate program for doulas here in the States. Hermione was in UK. By 2017, there was like, I don't know, 20, 30 programs. 2017, the Doula Alliance came in. 2018, the NHPCO invited doulas to the table and created an end-of-life doula advisory council just for us. And the purpose of that is to educate hospices and palliative care organizations on how to use community doulas. I was chair for the first 2.5 years, and we did all these things to educate them on how to use us. I even went to one of the national conferences as part of the Doula Advisory Council, showing them how to develop a corporate program. They were interested. That some don't like us because they have different ideas, but that's whole nother presentation. But a lot of them do, and they brought us to the table. In 2019, I forgot when my book got published in Spanish, but anyway, there's a big Latin America movement down there. And I did, you know, I will give my book to anybody down there who wants it. And by 2022, now we're 2025, there's over 70 programs, thousands of doulas. There's a lot going on in Latin America. And there's just everywhere you look, there's somebody wanting to help. And I really feel like, even though it's been, 20 years for me, I feel like we're just getting started. And most of the people here in this room are going to be the first doula anybody ever met. I'm about to move to Hazel Park, Michigan in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to start talking to folks over there, doing trainings, getting to know my neighbors. I'm going to do it in my neighborhood. I bet you none of them heard of this. And those of us here, a lot of us have heard of it because we're interested in it. And you can see all the pages of it, right? You see it happening, but most people will never hear of it. And you might be the first one. So the main difference between hospice and doulas is hospice is medical. We are non-medical. And that's huge. People will often say, well, what's the difference between you and hospice? What's the difference between a doula and hospice? And the main difference is that doulas are non-medical. We have nothing to do with the plan of care. And so when I get calls from medical directors saying, what are you doulas doing? I got doulas interfering with the care, and they're taking over where they shouldn't, and they're trying to advise everybody and giving us a bad name. So don't do that. If there's any professional doulas in here, know your place, and it's not in the medical team. Our place within a hospice situation with a family is to be the eyes and ears for hospice as well. I always, when I work, I also have a service. And every time I work with a family, my first thing when I go meet them and talk through the family agreement is that they're the leader of care, and I'm there to support them in any way. And do they want me to talk with the hospice folks? Then they need to do the whole HIPAA thing. And then my only role, even though I'm an experienced hospice nurse, is I tell everybody, just drop messages in the hospice nurse's phone. Don't ask for a call back. Don't leave a rambling message. Just what do you see? Drop it in their voicemail, and that's it. Now you can't be accused of trying to meddle, right? And that's the biggest thing, is we need to prove ourselves that we're not meddlers. And some doulas out there are inexperienced and they're not being trained on how to deal with hospice, maybe because they don't know. But I've been, behind the scenes in hospice. I can tell you the last thing we want is some busybody telling us what to do and demanding phone calls back. It's just not appropriate. It's just not. When you have the eyes to see and you're there with the family, yes, please drop the information into the phone if they allow you to do that. But hospice directs everything medical. And we also, I'll tell you, hospices love it when I'm on a case. They love it. Because whenever I'm on a case, that family is more settled. They're not calling them night and day. I'm helping explain what the hospice nurse said. You can do that too. You can be there when the hospices come. You can ask, do you want me to be there when the hospice nurse comes? And then you can ask the hospice nurse, so is this what you want me to reteach when they forget? Is this how you want me to say it? And then you get it straight from them. It's not you doing it. It's you reinforcing what the hospices say. So that way we always are in our lane, and then we can build trust with the healthcare team. So that's the big difference right there. So why is it doing that? Okay. So as a volunteer, ever since I started volunteering, but not within a hospice on my own out in the community. So when I started teaching, a lot of people wanted to do that. They just wanted to give what they had, be a resource in the community, but on their own. They wanted to give more than they could as a hospice volunteer, and they didn't want to do it they didn't want to follow anybody else's rules. They wanted to volunteer their own way. But you're not protected that way. If you work within hospice, they scout out the homes and they do a lot to make sure that we're safe. And then you're within their organization. They vet you like an employee. They protect you, all of that. When you're on your own, you have to get all of that protection on your own. You can volunteer, even if a hospital, a nursing home, the community organizations, hospice, if they don't have a doula program, it's so new and fresh. People always want volunteers. You can go and say, I'm an end-of-life doula. I just want to help. What is an end-of-life doula? I help accompany people as they die. I like to help during the dying time. They call it doula. The reason why I went with end-of-life doula back in 2005 is because Baylor, of all places, Baylor had an end-of-life doula program back then. It was on the internet. The internet was new to me. I mean, it was new to everybody, but I didn't know much about it. And I started typing in stuff. Baylor had a program, and then there was a New Jersey, I think it was the New Jersey hospice I ended up consulting for years. And I think that was the program that they had there was 2 programs outside of the Shirareske that had end-of-life doula program. And in my mind, it's like, okay, we're on the map within the medical system, even though it's only 2, Baylor and this other one. So I chose to continue to use end-of-life doula for what I was doing. And so you can go to them and say, there's this movement, there's this extra layer of support. You can point out the NHPCO Council, you can point out NIDA, you can say, I'd love to help you in this way. And I know lots of doulas, especially in my program, who have had all kinds of interesting collaborations. You're new. Remember, this is new. So fee for service, and this is what I recommend. So normally when, I'll tell you the first time that I was creating my service and my offer, I was developing it like you would any business, what is needed, and then what can I do? And that's all I thought about. And I was a hospice nurse, so I know what they needed and I know what I could do. And I just developed some, and I kind of looked at myself as a private pay hospice nurse. And I crashed and burned just as hard as I did in hospice, in healthcare. And so what I learned from that experience is I came up with this idea of like, oh, I can't develop it that way. If I'm ever going to serve again, I can't do it that way. So what can I do? And what dawned on me is like, wait a minute, why don't I just do what I would love to do? I can't do everything anyway. I've proven it again. I can't do everything. So why don't I just do what I love to do? So from the inside out, what I help people do is go, not just, oh, I want to make dying better. Everybody wants to do that. I mean, my legacy. What do I want more than anything to leave on this planet? And then the next layer around that is, what would I love to do all day? The next layer on that is, what's my life look like? What do I have to do to live? The kids, the husband, the dogs, my self-care. Outside of that, you see, we haven't even talked about families yet and patients. It's from here on out. The last thing I teach people to consider is the family and patients, because I must have a service that nourishes me while I serve, or I'm going to get depleted. If I do things I don't want to do, at times I don't want to do them, I'm going to get burnt out and I will quit. That's what happens. Okay, so in creating this role for yourself,